bring in our political panel this morning to discuss all of this. Glenn Ivey is a former state's attorney in the state of Maryland, a strategist at the partner of Ivey in Levittown, and a former state's attorney for Prince George's County as well. Joseph Pinion is a GOP strategist and founder of the Conservative Color Coalition. And gentlemen, we welcome you both in. Glenn, I'd like to start with you. You saw in Stephanie's report there, we saw the Black Lives Matter group has written, defund the police on the street. How realistic is that?
It's not. I'd be really surprised if it caught any kind of legs in any jurisdiction, really. Because I think most, certainly elected officials and most people in communities understand that you need the police. The key is to have the right kind of policing that's coordinated with the community, that doesn't use excessive force. And I think that's really what the push is going to go after. And the legislation that's been proposed in Congress now, I think, is aimed at addressing that as well.
Joseph, let me ask you about the Republicans in all of this. President Trump had made significant progress on issues that were a big concern in the African-American community, including sentencing reform. I reported on some of that, and I heard people telling me that the Trump administration had done some things that had never been done before when it came to sentencing reform. So why now does it seem like they have had such trouble connecting with the same people who months ago were praising them for some of the steps that they had taken?
Well, look, I would argue that in spite of the steps forward, commencing with the First Step Act, the administration has always had a very difficult time collecting with people of color, even during the midst of that progress. So I think, again, we're really seeing the kind of boiling point, the culmination of a party that has had close to 60 years difficulty trying to get a robust amount of black people to support our agenda, in spite of the fact that in many ways the policies that are outlined by the Republican Party are in many ways aligned with the sensibilities of communities of color. So I think, again, this is not really about a policy. Justice reform has to mean more than just pardoning Alice Johnson. It also has to mean standing up vociferously for the right of a man to live free without dying with a knee on his neck while he's forced to defecate on himself, crying out for his mother.
Glenn, the politicians have somewhat taken a back seat on the Hill while all this is going on. Realistically, what can they do? When we talk about changing police policies, what's on the table? What can actually change? What can they do?
Well, I know the bill's going to focus on things like qualified immunity. Right now, police officers have some protections in the use of force because, the state gives them the power to use force, and you give them limited ability to be protected if they make mistakes. The bill would be aimed at rolling some of that back. Also, with respect to the civil rights law, lowering the standard for bringing civil rights cases, so it isn't necessarily willful act, but reckless act could be a possibility. But the reality is police and crime are really creatures of the state from the standpoint of state activity and legislation. And so I think you're really going to be looking to see what happens with state legislation. And also what's critical too is with mayors and executives, what chiefs of police are they picking, and are those chiefs of police going to be active leaders in moving the department in the right direction?
Joe, let me ask you, what is it like being a black Republican right now when so much of the ire from the protesters has been focused at the president, at the White House?
Look, I've made the remark many times that, to me, being a black Republican is no different today than it was 3 months ago or 2 years ago. The fact of the matter is it's a very difficult time for the larger tapestry of the African-American community to understand the long-term ambitions of people of color who are conservative. Having said that, I think, again, we have to understand that we cannot lay our burdens down at the feet of Donald Trump. That if we can understand that a John Crawford II can lose his life holding a toy gun in a Walmart in an open carry state, be shot dead, that a Tamir Eliza Rice can be shot dead playing with a toy gun in the public park, that a Trayvon Martin can lose his life callously with a bag of Skittles in his pocket simply because of the color of his skin. That we should understand that all of those incidents, as horrific as they were, transpired before President Trump ever became president, and that the need for change now is predicated on us having policy with teeth that extends accountability that we expect for every single profession on the planet to extend to the people we entrust to enforce our laws in the name of our invaluable Constitution.
Glenn, let me ask you about the response from local leaders, because here in the District of Columbia, you know, the mayor has ended the curfews. There has been a noticeable change in the demeanor of these protests. We have not seen any kind of violence the way we've seen earlier in the week. Glenn, some of the protesters told me towards the end of the week that they felt that this movement had finally found its voice, that last weekend was not reflective, they felt, and that they had lost messaging there. Do you feel that this has come back around again and now is focusing on what it was originally intended to focus on?
By and large, yes. I mean, I think the Black Lives Matter movement really has been impactful, probably the most amount of energy on the left for about 5 or 6 years now. It impacted certainly the presidential cycle. I think you'll recall how all of a sudden Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders felt that they had to speak out on some of these issues in 2016. I think that's happening again now, but in a much bigger way. So I guess the key question will be whether this movement sustains energy and whether, as President Obama suggested, it can transform itself just from street protests into something that has an impact at the ballot box in November.
All right, Joe, Glenn, we appreciate you joining us on the Hill this morning, and we thank you so much for your time. When we come back,